and visualize your process as it is. So basically every, for example, here we're looking at the accounts payable process. So with process mining, we can track every invoice that was processed in your system, all the footprints that it left. So for example, when the invoice is registered, when it is booked on an account, when something is changed on the invoice, when it's paid, all of these footprints we can trace. So we extract these footprints from the ERP system you're using, and we can recreate your process as it is. So in real time, we can see how every single invoice in your process has flown, also the deviations from your standard process. So yeah, it's basically an X-ray of your process as it is, and we can track every single invoice. So we use a Celonis Celonis is the software we use, the process mining software. And as Apolix, we are specialized in implementing the software and creating value out of it. So a lot of people, when they see this, they might imagine it's just plug and play. We connect to your data, to your ERP system, and then boom, we get insights into your process. But it's not that easy. There's a lot of work behind it. So data cleaning, making sure, and basically preparing the data to make sure it's ready for the analysis, and also building the analysis requires quite a lot of data manipulation. So at Apolix, we're specialized in implementing the software and also making sure we create value out of this analysis. So yeah, process mining brings transparency. We can see everything that happens in your process. And so we follow this measure, know, act loop, where process mining first shows you, okay, how does your process look like? We can measure what's going on. We can see the throughput times. We can see the deviations. We can see on-time payment rates. We can see all sorts of different things. So this is then when we go into knowing. We know what happens in our process. We know where it's going wrong, and we can focus. And then we act. So in Celonis, we can also create automations and act and be able to not only spot your inefficiencies, but take action and improve your process. So briefly about how we create business value with the implementation of process mining at Apolix. So there are basically three different ways process mining creates value. So organizational, which is, so for example, with process mining, you can also see compliance deviations in your process. So this could then bring upon organizational change within your organization to make sure your employees are working according to the standards. We also create value with execution management. So that's the example I briefly mentioned before, where we create automations to be able to execute certain manual steps in your process faster and more efficiently. And then lastly is also we create value because we also uncover data quality issues in your IT systems, and it can also help you use your IT systems better. Okay, so enough about the theory of process mining. I think it's more interesting for you to see now what we actually did and how it actually looks like. So let me stop presenting, and I will go into our our demo that we've prepared. Okay, here we are. I hope you can see my screen. So what we see here now is Oord's account payable process. So this is how most of the time the process flows. So we first enter an invoice, it is then booked, it then has to enter a workflow where different approval steps occur, and then it leaves the workflow to be able, so we can pay the invoice. Let me just in person. So this is how the process looks most of the time. But if we add more activities, we can see that it quickly becomes more complex, and there are a lot of deviations occurred. Your process never follows one single flow. A lot of different activities happen, different sequences of activities as well, And this can quickly become very overwhelming. So yeah, we can see a lot of different undesirable activities happening as well. So some rejections, some approvals that reoccur multiple times, and so on. And if we include really everything in our process, it becomes a very, very overwhelming spaghetti model of everything that happens in your process. So this is a summary, basically, of every single deviation you have in your process. And yeah, it's quite complex. So Lotte, what was your reaction when you first saw this spaghetti model in your process?
Honestly, I kind of expected it to be like this because we have a very overloading workflow with a lot of workflow steps. So I wasn't really surprised about the outcome of the spaghetti, but I was really happy with the fact that we could quantify everything that was happening in the workflow, because normally it was based on a gut feeling, and now we can show where it goes wrong and maybe who is lacking in approving their invoices on time. So I expected it because it's very complex process system-wise. It's and now we can quantify everything, so it helps us a lot.
Yeah. So it basically, brought you transparency into what you knew already existed.
Yeah, that was the first part. The no part is where we worked on quite a bit in the last year. So
yeah, exactly. So let me go back to a less overwhelming view of the process. So here we have a few variants. So yeah, so with process mining, we basically get an overload of information. We can see how the process flows. We can see the different activities that are happening. But yeah, it can quickly become very overwhelming, and it's important to set a focus when you use process mining and really focus on certain KPIs you want to improve in order to really realize value and make sure that you're focusing on what is actually relevant. So I've prepared a dashboard here that kind of summarizes what we're going to talk about today. So first thing is late payments. So as an organization that processes hundreds of invoices on a weekly basis, it's also difficult to keep an overview of what is paid on time or not. And a lot of accounts payable departments struggle with an on-time payment rate. So we're going to focus on the late payments and how we enable more transparency to understand why invoices are being paid late. We are also going to look at duplicate invoices. Again, by processing hundreds of invoices a week, some duplicate invoices might slip through, and we'll see how we tackle this at Van Oord. And then we're not going to focus on the missing purchase orders today, but it is also something we're working on right now at Van Oord to implement a way to reconcile invoices that are missing a purchase order. So if we go into the late payments, so we see right now we have a late payment rate of 46%. So what we see here is, I briefly summarized our findings in a dashboard here, is that we had different reasons why invoices were being paid late. So either a slow invoice registration or a slow workflow approval, or that an invoice is being rejected, and so on. And we also established that there were different scenarios. So so a late payment is whenever an invoice is paid after the payment due date. And what we saw is that, so a lot of invoices reached their payment due date after the workflow, but a lot of them also before the workflow. So before it was even going through all of these approval steps, an invoice would already be too late and overdue. So what this meant is probably that the backlog of these invoices before they're entered in the system was very big and couldn't be processed on time. And a lot of invoices were waiting in the backlog before entering the system and being processed. And then we also saw that some invoices were reaching their due dates in the workflow, and which means either that they were stuck at a certain step in the approval workflow, or they were rejected somewhere. So we really wanted to focus here and be able to create transparency in the before and in the workflow, because this is, if the invoice is waiting somewhere, this is something we want to see and we want to avoid. So the way we thought we could act upon these insights, so after our analysis and we brainstormed with Lotte how we could enable the AP team to process invoices faster and understand why why they were paying invoices late. So what we thought of was creating some operational dashboards that are used on a day-to-day basis by the accounts payable team to understand, okay, today this many, so for example, the backlog, the scenario where invoices were being paid, were reaching their due dates before even going through this whole approval flow. So these invoices are the ones that were stuck in the backlog, stuck in, this pile of invoices that still had to be put through the system. So we created here a dashboard that allowed the accounts payable team to, on a day-to-day basis, to understand what is the workload. So what we can see is we divided, for example, the invoices that had to be processed through business units, but also through clients and through the responsible user to show, okay, where does the workload lie? But most importantly, we also connected this with Van Oord's service level agreement. So we want to see how many invoices have been waiting in the backlog and for how long. So how many have been in there for 24 hours, how many have been in there between 24 and 48 hours, and how many have been in there for more than 48 hours. So this also allowed the team to prioritize, okay, the ones that have been in there for more than 48 hours, we need to do something about it, because otherwise, if they stay in there for too long, for a week or more, they might reach their due dates even before going through the workflow. So this is one of the first ways we enable the AP team to work with dashboards on a daily basis and be able to directly see what has to be done. Because, as I said, in an accounts payable department, a lot of invoices are processed every day, and you don't always have a visibility into, okay, what has to be done now, what's the priority, and where to find these invoices. So this really, without having to look into the system, this summarized the backlog and the workload for the department, and also made sure that, okay, we have to make sure that invoices are being processed on time. In the other scenario where we also had invoices that were reaching their due dates while being in the workflow, we also created transparency there. So what we can see is the amount of invoices in the workflow, also how many are already overdue, how many are very near to being overdue, and how many are not overdue, which also allows to prioritize what to work on first. And especially here, the interesting part was to prioritize these overdue invoices. So a way we did this was to focus on invoices that are 3 days until overdue or also overdue, and be able to notify the workflow approvers and make sure they take action on it. So if we look at this invoice here, we can also see where it's stuck. Why is it almost overdue, and where is it stuck in the workflow? So we see here, this invoice here is stuck at this step. I'll make it a bit bigger. So this invoice has been stuck at a cost coding step, has been rejected here, and has been there since the 11th of November. So so this workflow approver, we can notify and make sure that, okay, he has to take action on this invoice. And so as the accounts payable managers use this dashboard on a daily basis, they can also prioritize the invoices they want to be taken care of right away and notify them. For example, with clicking this button, they could assign the invoices that need to be taken care of. Okay, so just invite someone. Okay, so this is so this is one way we allowed the AP process to understand what's happening in their accounts payable process, which invoices need to be taken care of now, and they have the information here as well. So the voucher number of that invoice, the value, when the due date is, so they really have all the information in one place instead of having to look for everything in the system. So Lotte, maybe you can tell us a bit more about how this changed the way the AP team worked and how they reacted to it as well when we started implementing this.
When we started implementing it, they were a bit hesitant about it because it gave a lot of transparency about the process, and it quantified that we're being too late, and then we would steer on being the invoice being too late, and there was a bit of resistance there. But now we see that the backlog is always clean. We always process our invoices on time, And even with the workflow and overdue invoices, the email function is really beneficial for them, because normally they would have to go into the system, to the client, to the invoice, open the workflow, see who needs to approve them, and then manually send an email to that person. And this process is like 5 minutes shorter at least at the minimum. So they really love it. And they even start to come to us with ideas about improving the dashboard. And have you thought about this? And could we do this? So you see that we're starting a cooperation with the team to improve the dashboard and make the work more efficient. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah, I think that's really nice to hear, because obviously when you see this, it might seem like, it's a tool to monitor, but it's also here to really help them be able to process invoices faster and also more invoices over time. So yeah, I think it's really nice that we're getting suggestions also to build really what the AP team wants. So
yeah,
I think that's
definitely.
really nice. Okay, so this is one way we helped the AP department save time in their invoice processing and really have one place where they can find all the information of what needs to be processed soon, what is nearing the overdue dates, what has priority. But we also found a way, or implemented something to save, to detect duplicate invoices at Van Oord, so saving also money. And this, as I said, an organization that processes a lot of invoices every day, a lot of duplicates can slip in between, and it's important to detect those. So yeah, we started implementing a duplicate checker at Van Oord recently. But before that, maybe Lotte, you can explain, how did you detect duplicate invoices before? How would they come up?
Normally, they would come up when we did the outstanding items, and then we would notice that there are invoices that were duplicate. But also in payments, when someone would check the payments, they would notice like, oh, this invoice we already did with a huge amount probably. It was very manual and also almost by chance, I would say. And it was also only within our shared service center hub. So we have 2 shared service center hubs, Dubai and Rotterdam. And then we have clients that are not part of the shared service center. So we would only discover duplicates within our own shared service center hub, Rotterdam. And now we are also finding duplicates in the shared service center Rotterdam and outside the shared service center. So we would never discover them before this. So this is really great for us.
Yeah. So yes. So within Celonis, there's a possibility to implement what's so-called a machine learning duplicate checker, where basically we query the data from your system and scan for duplicate invoices. And whenever 2 invoices are found that have the same amount, the same invoice reference, and basically match on different fields, it is detected and flagged as a potential duplicate. So yeah, as an example here at Van Oord, we detected, for example, 54 potential duplicates. We can see that the last one was detected 2 days ago, and overall the total duplicate amount is above 3 million euros. So what happens when an invoice is detected? So maybe I'll go, sorry, let me just go here. Yeah, so when what happens when a duplicate invoice is detected? So when a duplicate invoice is detected, a notification is sent to the accounts payable team first. So I can explain this here. So one is found, and if that duplicate is new and has not been sent out yet by email, an email is sent to the accounts payable team to say, okay, this new duplicate was found with this amount, please take action. So this is the first step of our duplicate checker. It is notifying the AP team once a duplicate notification is found. And what happens next is, so whenever they get this email, they're redirected to this page here, which allows them to categorize the duplicates that were found. So all detected duplicates will end up here. And a person in the accounts payable team can then decide what to do with these duplicates. So let's imagine, okay, this new duplicate here of 930 euros, we can click on it and also decide what to do with it. So if we click on it, we first see the details. We can see, so it's a pair of duplicates. So we have the two, so it's within the same vendor that we have a duplicate invoice of 930 euros. And it was detected the 1st of November. So what we do here is, with these details, the accounts payable team can then check if it's indeed a real duplicate, if it's actually not a duplicate, or if it was actually already taken care of before. So then according to this, they will sort this detected duplicates. So if now I click on duplicates, it seems to be taking a while. Okay, I'll just show you. I was prepared for this, so I'll just show you an example. So if we sort it on duplicates, we can then find it back in the duplicates, in the open duplicates. So we then basically make a distinction between what has to be taken care of and what was already resolved. So in the open duplicates here, yeah, we can then, with this then becomes the to-do list for the AP team. Okay, this is an open duplicate right now. We have to fix it and either delete one of those or get reimbursed if it was already paid. So same scenario, if we had sorted the duplicate on resolved, it ends up in the resolved duplicates, and we can add comments on when it was corrected and yeah, that it's already been resolved. And basically, once we have sorted all these duplicates, we can get an overview and understanding also of, okay, how much money did we save with this duplicates checker? How many invoices were detected in total? And also check also the accuracy of the duplicate checker. So over time, once we sort all of these duplicates, we'll see, okay, maybe half of them were real duplicates and the other half were already resolved. So we saved half of these 3 million euros. So yeah, this shows us then this is also a way of fine-tuning the duplicate checker, because yeah, as we saw at Van Oord, that it's not detecting everything yet. So we're kind of starting this feedback loop to see, okay, why was it not detected, and how can we make sure that over time we improve this duplicate checker, that it detects all duplicate invoices. So yeah. So this is how we also created value for Front End with process mining by identifying these duplicate invoices and making sure that the accounts payable team can organize their workload accordingly. So they see what is open, what has to be taken care of. And oh, I think there was something in chat. Okay, the duplicate checker is nice and very helpful, but there is no solution in the source system itself. Why is it possible that there's a duplicate in the first place? Now you're always reactive afterwards. Yes, so this is it's a very relevant question, because what we see is that sometimes we detect the duplicate when it's in the system, but it hasn't been approved for payment yet. So here you can preventively stop this duplicate before it's paid twice. But then we also have cases where, oh, we detected it when it was already paid, and then we have to reverse it and work backwards to make sure that we get the money back from the invoice that we paid double. So I think this is something that can happen. So Lotte, the duplicate invoices that we have, it's sometimes booked on different clients, right? In different.
So within Van Oord, we have a different master data of suppliers in every client. So supplier X would have supplier ID 000 in one client and 111 in the other client. So we can really see it on supplier level if there are duplicates. So the duplicates within the client and with the same supplier ID would be detected by the source system indeed. But if they are across clients, then the source system cannot see them. So that's why we have this duplicate checker as a backbone to intercept them.
Exactly. And yeah, so it's we're not looking at the double payments, so it's more the double invoices in the system, and hopefully most of them haven't entered the flow yet, so it can be prevented, but some of them have to be corrected. But
we also had an instance in where sometimes people use the pay ID as a invoice number, And then the fields of the invoice date, the amount, the due date, they would be the same, but the invoice number would be different. And you could also mark that as a potential duplicate, and that is something the system would never intercept the source system. So you need to learn the machine to detect on this different field combinations.
Yeah, so with the different use cases we'll see now at Van Oord of, okay, this duplicate wasn't detected because it was actually 2 different invoice numbers. So then we'll adjust the script to also include invoices that have different invoice numbers but same amounts, so that we also include more potential duplicates as the results. Okay. Yeah, so I think I'll go back to the executive dashboard. So as I mentioned, we're not going to deep dive into the use case of missing purchase orders today, but this is something we're working on as the next step at Van Oord right now. So what we see in what is an issue right now in their accounts payable process is that a lot of invoices come in and are not matched with a purchase order. So this obviously slows down the process because this invoice has to be matched to the corresponding purchase order, and it's a lot of manual work. So something we've started to implement but still need some fine tuning is an action flow that every time an invoice arrives in the system and is marked as missing a purchase order, that we make an email that reconciles, basically notifies the purchase order approver of this invoice and matches it back to the order ID. So then we basically help instead of the workflow approver having to search, okay, which order does this invoice match to, that we automatically in the email let them know, okay, this is the order ID that's missing. Please reconcile them now in the system, which basically then saves time and saves time for the accounts payable department. I think this was everything I wanted to cover in the demo. If there are questions, please send them in the chat or now, and I'll do my best to answer them. If there's any other use case you have in mind, if you want to know if process mining can help in that area, or if any of these use cases seemed interesting to you. Okay, Lotte, maybe this first question is for you.
The underlying data source is Unit 4 UBW, it's our EEP system. We also integrated ServiceNow, the ticket system that Procure-to-Pay is using, and we, I think those are the only 2 systems we have right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a quite customized system for you at Van Oord.
Yeah, it's a very manual intensive to create dashboards in Celonis, but the rewards are very beneficial. It's the way of work.
But we can basically connect to any type of ER system as long as we have event logs. So the trace of a timestamp of when something occurred, then we can work with it. But more standard source systems are SAP, Oracle, Microsoft. So second question, is the way of work, has the way of working changed at the team? Do they only work from their mailbox, their trust already?
So the way of working has changed in the sense of that they are using Celonis to gather their invoice data now. As I said before, they normally have to go to the ERP system, go to the client, go to the supplier, and then go to the invoice. And now there's just one overarching overview, and they can search on invoice number and see the invoice immediately. So that saves them a lot of time. The email function is only applicable now for the workflow and for so we're not using that automation, that function for anything else. So there would still be some manual emailing applicable, but it has been more time efficient.
Okay, and then about the other plans at Van Oord deploying process mining. Yeah, so we basically focused here in this webinar about the usage of late payments, about slow workflow approvals, and duplicate invoices. But we have looked at a lot of different things within the accounts payable process. We've also looked at compliance, about segregation of duties. Yeah, we've looked at. So now we're looking more at the purchase orders to see also if some invoices are approved before the purchase order is approved. So that would also be a compliance breach. And now we're also expanding to master data management. So we're helping improve the master data management process. And I believe also other processes, Lotte?
Master data management, procurement, accounts payable are the main we are doing now, and in the next year we'll shift to order to cash, and and a record to report as well.
Yeah.
And what is nice now is that we can see the full end-to-end process of procure to pay. Because normally we would only know, okay, accounts payable, and these are the issues we are having. And now we can see the full process flow of the purchase request, the purchase order, the invoice, and the payment. So it really is a great program to work with.
Yeah, and about how difficult it is to learn to work with Celonis. So yeah, maybe that's also why we're specialized in implementing it, because I think a lot of companies get a Celonis license, but struggle to really realize value out of it and really build relevant dashboards and analyses. So yeah, that's our role as Apolix, but then also Lotte and Muriel. So the two people that are working at Van Oord with process mining are now very enabled, and yeah,
I would say if you have people that have the time and to do process mining, that it isn't really hard to learn, but you have to invest time in it. If you have people that are going to do it 1 hour a week, then I would say that's a bit difficult to master.
Yeah. So there are a lot of trainings also that Celonis makes available to be able to master creating analyses and so on. But yeah, there's also this whole part in the back end of cleaning the data and preparing the data before we can build anything. So yeah, it's yeah. Okay, how important is change management? How much is needed in percentage of the whole time, effort, budgets? So I think this is more a question for Lotte or for Rob even.
I know the second question I cannot answer, but the first one I can. It's pretty important to do a suitable change management because there would be resistance in showing the workload, and if you are too late, then you would say, hey, you're too late. That is not. People tend to be offended about that, so you should really explicitly say what the value of Celonis is and what you want to accomplish with it. Because if you say, yeah, you're too late, start working, that's not going to work. You need to have an improvement mindset about it and saying we need to see the bottlenecks and then we can improve. So it's, yeah, I think it's important to say that instead of like firing complaints to the departments about their way of working.
For sure.
And the second question I cannot answer. Maybe Rob can answer if he is able to unmute himself. But
yeah,
we have one full-time employee on Celonis now, and I am doing also spending a lot of time on Celonis, and we have a consultancy firm, and I don't know how many hours a week are you spending on us, Maxine?
I think it's about 24 a week.
Yeah, so it's quite an intensive process to implement it.
Yeah. But yeah, what's really nice now after a year of working with Van Oord is that with Lotte and Muriel, her colleague that we're working with, it's really become a collaboration where we share our knowledge about how to build certain things, and it's really, yeah, you're really enabled to use Celonis now, and it's working together, which is really nice. Okay. If there are not any other questions, oh, how did you get the best cooperation between Van Oord and Apolix? Well, I think,
yeah.
well, we meet almost on a daily basis, so it's a lot of communication.
Yeah.
Realigning sometimes as well. Yeah, making sure we deliver what we had to deliver, and yeah, I think we've learned also over time to really work with. Now we work with tickets as well, which we assign to make sure that what what needs to be done in a week is done. So we've become more organized also in our way of working, I would say, over time.
Yeah, and it helps if you, as we have people who can do process mining, and it helps Apolix to do the more difficult stuff like machine learning and Python scripts, etc. And we can do the front end, so creating dashboards, and it will benefit your results in Celonis. It will generate more results in a shorter amount of time. So we complement each other now instead of Apolix doing all the work.
Exactly. So we shifted from doing everything to moving more to the back end, everything that's more technical, which is data manipulation. And then you've taken over this front end part to build actually what you exactly want. And yeah, I would say it's like you said, it's complementing each other. So yeah. Are there any other questions? Okay, if not, then I want to thank you for your time and thank you for joining this webinar. It's always nice to share what we've been working on for so long. So thank you very much. And yeah, the session is recorded. So if you want to have access to the recording, let us know. And yeah, enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.